Section 67 of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson. The Brief Biography of a Little Bear, Part 7, The Wonderful Suckling. One of the most amusing of European ways in Burma and India is the habit of adhering to hours of work and fashions of garments that suit London. In the heat of the day, the whites and their direct employees are supposed to be working hard. This leaves the best hours of the 24 for amusement, which is not exactly what was intended. The fashion is set by men who live in the hills. That is the secret. You cannot really ignore the sun in the tropics, however. You can only pretend to do it. Go into many a native quarter or bazaar in the middle of the day, as the bear used to do at Kayaktan, and you behold life honestly relaxed. The customers in the bazaar are country cousins from a distance, if there are any customers. The buzz of an occasional sewing machine is like the drone of bees in summer, harmonious enough in the ears of the bazaar sellers, many of whom are taking a siesta. When she wanted fun or fruit or to see the crowd, when she was on business, so to speak, the bear went to the bazaar like other Kayakpan people, in the morning or perhaps the late afternoon. When she went in the middle of the day, it was just because master was busy at court, and it was dull at home, and a rest seemed likely to be more enjoyable in company. When once she was sauntering towards it at this midday hour, she passed an Indian cottage, in front of which, upon a charpoy, or bedstead, used also as a couch, and now set upon the ground in a shady spot, a young Indian mother lay sound asleep, with baby in her lap, it may be guessed. At any rate, the baby had had enough for the time, while Mamma lay back upon the couch, breathing peacefully. Her plump and healthy breasts were full of milk, and as the little bearess looked, the instinct of childhood returned upon her, and she went up softly and laid her lips to the nipple which the other baby had abandoned. She milked the woman dry, said people afterwards, but nobody saw it being done. Nobody noticed anything till the street rang with female shrieks. Ayah! 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 Mother! Mother! Help! Help! Come all! Come all! Come all! Come all! Help! Help! Ah, mother, 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 mother! Ayah! Ayah! The bear pushed her way through the gathering crowd and hurried home unhurt. One does not readily lift a hand against an old favorite, and she was home before people realized the terrible event. Luckily for everybody, Kayaktan was, and still is, blessed with that most useful of men, an honest lawyer. He was a barrister at law, but the queer convention of some parts of Europe, which restricts the best lawyers to talking in court, and allows them to be consulted only through another lawyer, is as unknown in Burma as in America. At Kayaktan, as in Boston, you do not need to be lathered in one shop and shaved in another. You choose your lawyer and go to him straight. The Kayaktan barrister had been an official once, but, as people said, he had retired and reformed. In sober truth, he had been one of the best commissioners ever known in Burma, and now his mere presence at Kayaktan made life more bearable to honest men for many miles around. To him, the husband of the unhappy young mother, just milked dry, went running, a score of women probably shrieking instructions after him, and half the women in Kayaktan standing ready to advise. But, wonderful to tell, there were many of them on the side of the bear, poor harmless orphan, and when, after a while, the obedient husband slowly returned to his wife, and did not announce a suit or anything else to be done, some praised the lawyer, and others said that the man had only pretended to go and consult him. The strangest thing of all, significant of much, was that nobody then complained to the bear's master, or even told him of the matter. He was left to learn it later from the bantering of the honest lawyer. Was there ever a pet so popular before? End of section 67. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Section 68 of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson. The Brief Biography of a Little Bear. Part 8. Harum-scarum. There were many other freaks of the bear, which a kind conspiracy of silence concealed from her master as long as possible. Like other bachelors who live alone, he was not always punctual in sitting down to table. His pet had the healthy appetite of youth, and was hungry at times before dinner was ready, and then, being at home everywhere and not troubled with false pride, she naturally went to the kitchen and helped herself. It is likely that she burned or scalded herself in that way, for it is known that another little Burman bear, who frequented the kitchen, had that experience. But we have only probability to go upon in this instance. She made no complaints, and returned regularly, and the cook would not tell tales. Indeed, he seems to have taken great pains to protect her, thrusting himself between her and danger so often that, at last, not knowing what he would be at, she either misunderstood his intentions or lost patience, and recollecting how strong she was, she turned to claw that affectionate but too meddlesome cook. The upshot was all her master was allowed to know. It could not be concealed. The cook had to bolt. Alone in the kitchen, with unfettered discretion, she behaved like the reasonable, civilized animal she was. She merely took what she wanted, and did what she liked, and allowed the cook to return. She had never meant to hurt him, only to remove him out of her way. She used to travel about with her master when he went on tour. Being unable to ride a pony, she sat in a cart. The ideal method would have been for her to sit in a box or basket on such occasions, and journey as Gulliver did in Brobdingnag, but it was useless to argue with her. She could burst any wicker work as easily as Samson burst his bonds, and she saw no need for anything but a convenient seat. She liked to joke with the driver, like a passenger on an old-fashioned bus or coach, but gradually it came to her master's knowledge that, only too often, the driver and anybody else in the cart had to jump down to avoid her. She was so rough in her horseplay. There was a rumor that she once knocked down a driver, but he made no complaint, and it was probably an accident. I was once nearly knocked down by a bear that cannoned against me by inadvertence, hurrying to greet me in a friendly way. When left alone in the cart, she never attempted to touch the reins. She gazed at them and the bullocks, serenely unconcerned, as the passengers in a steamer look at the machinery. When the driver went to the bullocks' head and stopped them and gathered up the reins and climbed back into the cart, she seemed to consider his behavior a matter of course, and looked as if anything else would have surprised her. Nevertheless, when these transporting adventures became known, her master insisted on leaving her at home. End of section 68. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Section 69 of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson. The Brief Biography of a Little Bear. Part 9. All the Rest. It was not altogether disagreeable to the bear to be left alone in the house, with only a servant or two, and nobody to correct her, but she made herself unpleasant to other people. Her master found her, after every absence, more and more savage upon his return. These are his own words, and yet, however imperious to others or contemptuous of humanity, she was always amenable to him, and to him she was always dear. At this point, as is common in biographies, the historian who would be faithful must face a divided duty. In order to please the friends and relatives, one has to heed nothing but what they choose to tell, and if one does that, then the biography is merely an unreadable fiction. As the satirist cynically puts it, facts inane the volume fill. Keep the secret, secret still. Here and there may truth be guessed, from what can be seen, suppressed. One of the things that make this biography worth writing is the freedom from conventional restraints. So readers shall have the truth, and the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The bear's master has long been a friend of mine, and I hope will so continue. But truth is dearer than anybody, so I will not suppress the remarks of the honest lawyer at Cayetan, who is also an old friend, and has read the first draft of this work. He sent me a letter on the subject, containing the excruciating words that the bear at Cayetan had become a nuisance. The expression is his. My responsibility is limited to quoting it. I desire to express no opinion of my own. What her own master could not help seeing was the contrast between her behavior and that of a very respectable bear at Siriam, a place at the other end of the ridge, nearly a day's walk from Cayetan, just across the river from Rangoon. The bear living there belonged to Mr. Brand of the Burma Oil Company, and he and our heroine's master often compared notes and discussed the problem of her higher education. Mr. Brand seemed to think she had good natural gifts, but had come to a difficult age when she needed daily supervision. He never went on tour himself, and was willing to take charge of her. She would be sure to benefit by the company of an older and well-behaved bear, and the two together would be happier at Siriam than either was alone. At last her owner was persuaded, and, when every preliminary had been settled, our heroine set out for her new home, A.D. 1900. She went in a slow cart, and the day was hot. It is not so well known as it should be that bears and elephants and tigers, too, are almost as sensitive to the sunshine as white men. In this instance, though every possible precaution was taken, the bear was decidedly unhappy on the way. We have to remember that she was an adolescent female, and a fully emancipated one, who had lived exclusively for her own amusement, and never had anything particular to do or to suffer in this world. Her sensations, therefore, must have been remarkably like those of the American family, immortalized in Ruskin's letter to Norton of 1869. I was fated to come from Venice to Verona with an American family, father and mother and 2 girls, presumably rich, girls 15 and 18. I never before conceived the misery of wretches who had spent all their lives in trying to gratify themselves. It was a little warmer than was entirely luxurious, but nothing in the least harmful. They moaned and fidgeted and frowned and puffed and stretched and fanned, and ate lemons and smelt bottles, and covered their faces, and tore the cover off again, and had no one thought or feeling, during 5 hours of traveling in the most noble part of all the world, except what 4 poor beasts would have had in their den in a menagerie, being dragged about on a hot day. Letters of John Ruskin to C. E. Norton, pages 218 and 219. The longest road has an end, and Siriam was reached at last. The cart stopped, and the bear came down from it, with every sensation smothered in one irresistible craving for coolness, anything to be cool. A pleasant-looking tank of water was near, and into it she plunged. The details of what followed are variously reported. Eyes she had, and ears of the best, but she used them to avoid people. It was only after a long time that it pleased her to emerge, quite shivering now, cool enough at last. Fever came on and pneumonia, and next day she died, and that is the end of the story. When you think of it, that is how every story would end if it went on long enough. End of section 69, recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Section 70 of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona. Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson. The Brief Biography of a Little Bear, Part 10, Her Epitaph. It is now 1910, and already Mr. Brand himself is dead, and, spinning in the official whirligig, like the wind's blast, never resting, homeless, the bear's old master has long ago left Kayaktan and been in many places, so it is natural that no monument has been put up to her memory, and, maybe, none ever will be. But the things of the spirit are so wonderfully made that words on paper may endure longer than marble or brass. Wherefore, though it has not been engraved, let her epitaph be printed. If it is remembered till there is another as long and equally free from falsehood, it may endure for centuries, and, in the far forward dark abysms of time, this little bear may be associated with the constellation of that name, the constellation containing the polar star. Far stranger things have happened in this wonderful world. Her epitaph. Here sleeps a bear emancipated, who died here young and died unmated, because obedience was not taught her, and so she stayed too long in water, when once she wanted to be cool, and did not know she was a fool. Her every wish she gratified, and so she had a chill and died. In vain are others' love and care, the others can't be everywhere, for sins no neighbors can atone, we suffer and we die alone. For fine sleek hair and sparkling eyes are useless if you aren't wise, and things outside you have their laws, far stronger than the strongest paws. So, sister mortals, learn from me, take warning if you'd happy be, to hate the darkness, love the light, and don't do nothing but what's right, and listen sometimes now and then to what is yelled at you by men, and so enjoy your lives instead of being prematurely dead. End of section 70, recording by Nancy Cochran Gorgen, Gilbert, Arizona.
Section 71 of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Larry Wilson. Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson. A Chinese Hunter, 740 B.C. A strange and vivid glimpse by firelight into distant darkness is given by two Chinese songs, Odes 1, 7, 3, and 4, in Legg's Chinese Classics, 4, pages 127 to 131. I have versified Mr. Legg's prose. The date was certainly more than 500, and probably 740 B.C., and the locality northern China, probably Honan. Shu means younger brother, so that except to those who believe the commentators, which I cannot, the hero, like the poet, is anonymous, the younger brother. Both translations may be sung to the same air, Scots What Hay, which was a traditional hunting tune in the south of Scotland. N.B. Ribbons for reins is a literal translation. That familiar metaphor is over 2,600 years old. 1. Shu has an out a-hunting gone. Shu has out a-hunting gone, men enough are still in town, but it seems to me there's none, while I look for you. People feast and people drive, streets are thronged with men alive, but they're blank till Shu arrives, none there are like Shu. 2. Shu upon his chariot stands. Shu upon his chariot stands, takes the ribbons in his hands. 4 bay horses feel commands, stepping to and fro, regular like dancers high, o'er the wild geese in the sky. Insides lead and outsides nigh, like their shoulders go. At the marsh Shu stands the first. Bright the fires round it burst. Out there springs the tiger cursed. Teeth and claws we meet. So does Shu. His arms are bare. Stops the tiger, kills it there. Lays the bloody carcass fair at the prince's feet. Try it not again, my Shu. Never hurt we'd see on you. Once like that for life will do. Other game is here. See him give the horses rein, stop and shoot and off amain. Shoot and hit and shoot again, while the fire is clear. How he brings the horses round, how the game comes to the ground, when his arrows kill and wound wheresoe'er they go. Still they go, but now they're few. Now the quiver's empty too. Home, the steeds the stable view, yet they're coming slow. In the classical text these ancient hunting songs appear as here translated. But in singing them, if there is time to spare, the first may well be sung after the second, as well as before it. It is at once a fit introduction and a fit conclusion. These two songs are taken from a collection of Chinese songs and sayings, not published yet, and put here to show a kind of tiger killing deserving as much honor as men can ever give a fellow man. In those days, hunting was more like work than sport, and tigers were still a menace to humanity, such as we can hardly now conceive. There was great merit in hindering a tiger from escaping them. But today that matters little. Such an event as the song describes is not uncommon still. I have heard credibly of about a dozen like it among contemporaries in Burma in the last 24 years. Men seeking deer or other game are suddenly confronted by a tiger similarly engaged. If the men make way for him, he merely shows his teeth and swiftly escapes, and that is what generally happens. But if any one of the hunters hurts him, or his road seems blocked, then there is danger, and that is how fatal accidents often happen. Something of that sort was probably impending on this occasion, 740 B.C. or about then. There was probably a big crowd and a desperate tiger, and while the others facing him were shrinking, Shu perhaps leaped from his chariot, certainly stepped to the front, ready for action, a stalwart Chinese figure stripped to the waist like Nelson's sailors on a day of battle, and in all likelihood a big pointed knife in his hand. A shout might make the tiger shy a second, and so give him a chance. But the likeliest thing is that the tiger, coming out of the darkness into the glare of the fires, did not see him, and perhaps was trying to get away, or charging some other person, so that Shu could take him sideways and kill him. Somehow or other, Shu did it. Think of the few thrilling seconds of glorious life, and the jubilation of the crowd when the knife went home. Note the difference between them and us. Miss your shot with the breech-loader, and you can fire again, and even if you do not hit a vital part, you can stop him. But with bows and arrows, an old man said to me in 1889, telling how he and his father had fought a tiger with such weapons, and showing me the good old crossbow they used, "It is folly to shoot till he is close, for at a distance the arrow merely irritates him. Wait till he is near." 10 yards? My father let him come nearer. Then you hit his brain through the eye, if he's coming straight, or the heart through the ribs if he shows his side, and so he is dead. But if he isn't dead? Then drop your bow and fight him with the knife. Never try a second shot, for if you do, he's sure to get you. The tiger is very, very quick. You have to dodge him and get a knife into his vitals before he grips you. I suggested a spear, but was told it was too clumsy and slow to be a good weapon. The words of that old veteran, living among the hills between Burma and China, seemed to me to illuminate the hunting scene in old Honan better than any of the commentators on the classics. But for his talk, one would have been slow to guess that Shu went close to the tiger with a knife. That would explain why the poet alluded to Shu's bare arms, and to his standing in the front. He could not have fired arrows from his chariot, for the horses would have bolted. So we may still see him through so many centuries, afoot and in front, with businesslike bare arms and a sharp knife ready. We can rejoice with them all, and admired him yet, and feel also with the singers, once like that for life will do. It comes like a shock to remember that we are among the shades, and that more than 50 or 60 generations of men have come and gone since Shu and his companions all melted into dust and air. It gives us another kind of shock to contrast that kind of work with modern hunting. Our statesmen at large, slaughtering in foreign woods, are neither better nor worse than their friends at home, the poulterers. The only serious danger is from their own awkwardness in handling guns. Their butcheries are like those in old Roman arenas. And even Theodore Roosevelt himself, returning in gory glory, but without a scratch from Africa, can only be compared by one of his admirers to the immortal Tartarin of Tarascon. End of section 71. End of Anecdotes of Big Cats and Other Beasts by David Alec Wilson.